And if I told you once, I ain't gonna tell you twice. Salute all my real ones. I knocked the mic down and I still get it done. Yeah. Listen, champ, we got, how bad was Anthony Bennett actually? I mean, he was terrible. One of the worst first overall picks of all time. Yeah, straight bum. You're trash, Anthony Bennett. You're garbage, bro. We're gonna get straight to this video. Like button, subscribe button, notification bell, press those. Let's go. Y'all like this, you know what I'm saying? It's entertainment. I'm a professional.
Bennett is best known for being the first overall pick in the 2013 NBA draft and getting mentioned with the term bust in the same sentence. But how bad was Anthony Bennett actually? And is he really the worst #1 overall pick ever? Youth career and college. Anthony Bennett was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, but he moved to the USA at the age of 16 to advance his basketball career against tougher competition. In 2010, Draft Express described him as an athletic and strong big man with both physical and basketball upside. Most of his points in high school came via dunks, but he also had solid shooting mechanics and could score from mid-range and hit an occasional three, which stuck with most NBA scouts. He was far from a finished product, but the potential was there, and Bennett was listed by all major publications as the #1 forward and the top 10 high school player in the country. Bennett had offers from many major NCAA universities, and he ultimately opted for UNLV. He averaged 16.1 points and 8.1 rebounds a game in only 27 minutes per game at UNLV, which isn't remarkable, but the scouts were intrigued by his efficiency. Anthony shot 53% from the field and 37.5% from three-point range, and his average player efficiency rating was 28.3, one of the best ratings in the country. Bennett then took the well-known one-and-done route, and after just 1 year, he signed up for the 2013 NBA draft. Pre-draft. Before the draft, NBA scouts had quite divided opinions about the young Mr. Bennett. Some believed he could become a player of similar ilk as Larry Johnson, another UNLV standout, NBA All-Star, and the #1 overall pick in 1991. Paul Millsap's name was also thrown around, mostly because Bennett resembled both of those players physically as a strong, undersized forward. Some scouts weren't convinced that he'll ever become an All-Star like Johnson or Millsap, but they all agreed on one thing: the kid had potential, and he should be picked in the lottery. Even though many believed Bennett could eventually become a good player, almost nobody thought that he had superstar potential. In fact, none of the mock draft sites predicted his name would be called before the 4th pick, and most projected that he would be drafted 10th overall. Why drafting first matters. In May of 2013, the lottery god smiled in the direction of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who won the #1 overall pick in the draft for the second time in 3 years. 6 NBA franchises never had a first overall pick in the draft, and with the new lottery system, having a top pick is not guaranteed, even if you had the worst record. That being said, a wasted first pick has its penalties. It means that the franchise has missed the opportunity to start forming a winning team, which usually means another year without the playoffs, fewer games on TV, less fans in the arena, and all of those things mean less money. In the NBA world, where superstars are hard to come by, and where 30 teams fight for a championship under the strict rules of the salary cap, drafting well is the key to success, especially for small market teams that don't attract free agents. 25% of all players drafted first overall made at least one All-NBA team, and 55% of them played in at least one All-Star game. As the picks go down, the talent crop gets thinner, and the chances for drafting a future All-Star get slimmer. For example, only 30% of players chosen 5th overall will become an All-Star, and 7% of them will make an All-NBA team. From mid to late lottery, chances to draft an All-Star drop below 1%. We're not trying to bore you with statistics, but these numbers paint a nice picture of how crucial it is to score the first overall pick and how important it is not to screw it up. The 2013 draft. When David Stern came to the podium and said that with the first pick in the 2013 draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers selected Anthony Bennett, the reaction was an unusual one. You could hear a loud murmur of many OMGs and WTFs in the draft room and see plenty of faces frowning in disbelief, including the face of Anthony Bennett himself. Bennett became the first Canadian chosen as the first overall pick after a solid but unspectacular year at UNLV. Despite having no expectations to be drafted first, he suddenly projected to be the cornerstone of a franchise that was still recovering from LeBron's decision. Contrary to all the predictions and analysis, this draft had the most quality players drop to the middle and end of the first round, making it one of the deepest drafts in recent NBA history. By choosing Anthony Bennett, the Cavs missed out on Giannis, Victor Oladipo, Steven Adams, CJ McCollum, and Rudy Gobert, among other quality starters and rotation players. Conditioning and work ethic issues. After a surprisingly solid summer league performance, Bennett showed up to his first training camp overweight and out of shape. Then the regular season started, and Bennett missed the first 16 shots of his career and didn't score his first field goal until the 5th game of the season. Bennett scored in double digits for the first time in his 33rd game. While more than 70% of first picks scored over 10 points in their first NBA game, coaches tried everything to get him up to speed and acclimated to the NBA. He played both forward positions, they pushed him at times, and gave him space at others. Nothing helped, and it was starting to get glaringly obvious that they drafted a cat in the sack. Even though he desperately needed more playing time, the Cavs refused to send him to the development league, fearing that it would crush his already fragile psyche and public image. He played 52 games with the Cavs in his rookie year, averaging 4.2 points on horrendous 35% shooting and 24% from 3. All that efficiency he had in college disappeared, and it was clear that there was little to no chance that something was going to improve. The issue with Anthony was, and we had no way of knowing this at the time, the kid had no desire to overcome adversity whatsoever. As soon as it was hard, he was out his whole life. He rolled out of bed bigger, better, and more talented than everybody else. As soon as it was hard, it was over, said the Cavs GM David Griffin. From first overall pick to G League in 4 years. Before his second season, the Cavs had no interest to make Bennett a part of the rotation, so he was eventually involved in a trade with the Timberwolves for Kevin Love. And the Timberwolves accepted to trade for him just because he was a package deal with Andrew Wiggins, another first overall pick. Anthony played better in his second year, which wasn't that hard considering how low the bar was set. In 57 games for the Timberwolves, Bennett shot 42% from the field and 30% from 3 for a measly 5.2 points per game. Minnesota waived Bennett before the next season and bought out his contract just to get him off the team. And when it seemed that the first pick would be out of the league in 2 years, the Raptors gave him a chance, partly because he was Canadian and partly because he was the first pick 2 summers ago. But after 19 games and a total of 28 points from Bennett, he was cut once again, proving that patriotism will only go so far. Next year, he got another chance with the Brooklyn Nets, who were the worst team in the league at the time and had nothing to lose. Bennett added another $1 million on his bank account, but he didn't add much to the Nets, averaging his standard 5 points and 3 rebounds, after which his NBA chances have expired. After only his 4th year in the league, Anthony Bennett had lost his job. This happens all the time, and about 50 basketball players get cut from the NBA roster every season. Those players are usually second-round draft picks or undrafted players who unsuccessfully try to show that they belong and deserve to play with the best players in the world. It was unprecedented that it happened to a guy who had been the first overall pick just 4 years ago. After the NBA, Bennett went overseas and signed with Fenerbahce, and he actually won the EuroLeague with the team in 2017. It's the only trophy in his short career where he contributed with exactly 12 points in 10 games he played in the EuroLeague. Bennett tried to revive his career in the G League and thus became the first #1 pick to ever play in a game in the G League. It seemed to work because in July of 2019, Bennett managed to sign a 1-year deal with the Houston Rockets, but he was waived during training camp. Is he the worst #1 pick ever?
Yes.
Many of the famous draft busts were actually solid NBA players. They were not worth the first pick, obviously, but they were good players who had the gift and the curse of being drafted first. Andrea Bargnani was a black hole on defense, and by no means was the next Dirk as he was advertised. He will always be considered a bust, but he still had one season where he averaged over 20 points per game and 14 points per his career. Kwame Brown was tormented by Michael Jordan with the Wizards, who shattered his confidence with trash talk, from which Kwame never recovered. But Brown still carved himself a fine 12-year NBA career and was one of the better defenders in the league when his number was called. The same is true for Candyman, Michael Oluwakandi, who couldn't score a basket unless he was alone underneath it, but he still played solid defense, which secured him a 9-year worth of NBA contracts. Purvis Ellison, Sam Bowie, and Greg Oden were all quote-unquote busts, but that was due to injuries more than anything, and all of them showed that they were otherwise talented to be, if not all-stars, then at least solid contributors. The only first draft pick comparable to Bennett was LaRue Martin, the first overall pick in 1972. Martin spent 4 years in the league, just like Bennett, and averaged 5.3 points and 4.6 rebounds, and was long considered the worst #1 pick ever, but he still had better numbers than Bennett. Some people will say that the burden of being the first pick and getting traded every year had a negative impact on Anthony Bennett and his career, but the truth is hard, and it is cold. Anthony Bennett didn't deserve to be the first pick, and frankly, it's questionable should have been drafted at all. To answer the question from the intro, yes, Anthony Bennett is the worst player in NBA history drafted first overall. The fact that he was picked first was actually beneficial to his career because
literally the Cavs literally could have drafted me and I'd have been giving them chips like literally what, 2013? That's like what, 9 chips in a row. They would have had 9 chips in a row, man. I'd have had 9 MVPs by now. I would have already cemented myself as the greatest basketball player in the universe. And y'all chose this dude instead.
Because if he weren't picked so high,
It's
he'd
my
get
fault I
fewer
didn't make
opportunities
myself
and be out of the league much sooner. But to be fair, you can't blame the mild-mannered Canadian for any of this and mock him for the lack of production. He didn't pick himself first overall, and if he was drafted in mid to late lottery, he would be out of the league maybe even sooner. But he wouldn't be called a bust. Thank you for watching.
Well, and at the end of the day, man, I hope that money that he made in those 4 years, that he saved it and lived well below his means, you know, so he's able to you know, provide for his family. He didn't make generational wealth, but he damn sure made enough money to be able to take care of his family. Well, matter of fact, let's pull it up real quick, because I'm feeling like looking. And if y'all don't know what DuckDuckGo is, we normally don't do Google, but you know, we don't do Google in this establishment normally because, you know, they like to take and sell your information allegedly. So there's that. So we go to Anthony Bennett career earnings. And then we need spot track on this one. Look, he made $16 million, but I don't think all of that was from the NBA though. He made $16 million, bro. 16 million. So if this shit are low, we go to, that's contract details. We go to career earnings. He made $5 million with the Cavs, another $5.5 million with the Wolves, $3.6 million again with the Wolves. So right there, that's what? That's 10.8. 11.4, 14.4. And then he made another, yeah, like, so all of that was in the NBA. He made $6,000 with the goddamn Rockets. That's a shame. So you made $16 million. All those states have income tax. So let's just say he made $8 million, bro. Yo, if you take that $8 million, you live off of 2%, yo, he should be good for the rest of his life. You ain't gonna live lavish, but you should be good. So hopefully he saved his money, man. But yeah, we gonna leave it right there. Let me know what y'all thought about the video. My name is Rain. Catch you on the flip side. RC, peace in the week for it.